Hello everyone, it's Jean from the Inky Owl Studio. I'm hoping you're having a good day today. It is just beautiful here in Florida. It's just the perfect temperature and low humidity. Really enjoying it. It's been a week since I've been with you, and once I got this finished and I went to get my papers together and decide what I'm going to put in it, I abandoned my initial view of what I was going to do because for some reason it just didn't seem right. And then it took me a whole week just to sit around and looking at inspiration videos, trying to looking at my collection of digitals, just trying to figure out how am I going to proceed. And I finally figured it out. And so that's what I'll be sharing with you. I'll be sharing the process of how I'm going to complete this and staying within that grungy theme. So for today, I am going to show you the process I've gone through in preparing my papers and my ephemera and different things, getting them grunged up, and hopefully giving you some ideas to play around and experiment with distressing your papers. So let's get started. I begin with some tea stain paper. And my process is to take like a 9 by 12 or 13-inch pan. I fill it about halfway with boiling water, put in 10 to 12 tea bags, and I soak my paper. And when I soak multiple pages, I make sure that when I put each one in, I leave a little bit of headroom on the one that's below it, so that when I take the paper out, they're not stuck totally together. I can peel them apart a little easier. I have an old sheet and I lay that across my kitchen island, and then I just lay the paper down to dry. And simple as that. And this is the result that I get. And the amount of time I soak, it really does depend on how dark I want it, and that's going to vary. So the process I'm going to use now is I'm going to use some distress spray inks, and I'm using antique linen and vintage photo. I have a piece of that paper there is freezer paper with the waxy side up. You definitely want a surface that does not absorb water. And I have a bottle of water there, the blue spray bottle. And I'm just going to put on a couple sprays of the distress ink, followed by quite a bit of water. So the first thing I did, and I'm not going to do it here, but I just soaked up a lot of the stain on on each page, and then I got this super grungy paper, which is really great if you're going to go in for a deep grunge. But I want to be a little less grungy, so I have this brush, and it's a hair brush, a soft brush. It's not a bristle. So I'm just going to experiment here. I'm going to make a few circles with it, then I'm going to put a whole bunch of splatters all over it, trying to use the two different distress inks. Now I'll have to say that the vintage photo did take out a lot of the linen color, but I'm just going all over it here randomly, and it is coming on the other side, which is pretty cool. Now I'm going to take water and I'm going to spray over that, and I'm not spraying a whole bunch, just enough to make it pretty damp. And you can see that a lot of the drops then begin to lose their borders. Now this is not Distress Oxide ink, which I think would be really awesome to use, but I don't have that. This is just the regular Distress ink. That would be a whole different process if you used the oxide, because everything would expand probably so much better. But I still like the results. So I'm doing a second page like that, going over, and you don't want to get it too wet because your paper will tear. But just pretty good there. And I'm laying it on the sheet to dry. Okay, and then anytime you feel like it's getting dry over there, you just add more water. And of course, the less ink you have and the more water you have, the less, of course, it's going to dye your paper. So there, I just went ahead and dipped the whole page in. And now I'm taking, adding a little bit more spray and the two different colors anyways, getting them lots of water. And with this, I am just trying to dip just a few areas and then placing it on top of another piece of paper. So the thought is that all the excess will be absorbed by the second piece of paper, and each paper will have a different marking on it, of course. Different kind, each one will absorb the stuff more or less. I'm dampening the top, I'm going inside and dampening inside there. So the middle page was not really dipped into the dye or into the ink. It was being inked by the two outside pages. So that's what and I set them together without separating them. I'm going to let them dry. So now I got some ephemera. I'm painting this one piece, but really I just may as well tea stain it because it wasn't anything special. I think I was just trying to get rid of some of that ink. So what's really a good idea is when you come to the end of doing this process, there's always this little bit left. So I'm just mopping it up with a piece of paper, and that way you don't waste anything. So I'm going to go back and do these glassine bags. I've had trouble dipping them fully into a tea stain bath because they end up gluing together so much. Oh, and so first of all, this was a process I really saw someone do, and I loved it. And I'm just taking a piece of ephemera and I'm just dipping in the edges. It's so much quicker than to go around and distress with a brush, and it's so much grungier. And of course, again, if you want a lighter color, then you're going to go with the antique linen. Here I'm still using vintage photo. These tags then, because they're a cardstock, are going to act differently as well. So I'm just splattering a tag, and then because they're cardstock, you can put the water on without worrying too much about it. And I'm just going to see how that works out. Now I'm just dipping them in, and it's really lovely. Just lovely grunge. Just, yeah, really like that. It's really nice. So I'm letting those sit aside and dry. Thought I'd do a few more. You don't have to worry so much about it getting wet because they won't tear as easily as paper. And now we're going to do the glassine bags finally. So as I was saying, when I have put these in a tea stain bath before, the inside of the bag especially would just like almost glue together, or just would be really hard to separate. So I'm just doing this to see if this won't be an easier way to do the bags without that happening. And now I'm just going to go ahead and mop up some more of that concoction. And of course, each time you dip in, the effect's going to be a lighter color. And I always use the same sheet over and over again, so I'll let it dry and just use it again, because somehow you just can't seem to get every last drop off. And now I'm using a piece of muslin, and I'm cleaning my brush on it, getting what's left on that, getting what's left on the paper as much as I can, and we will let that dry. Now I'm going to do some papers, some vintage papers, or they're not too vintage. These are range from the 50s to the 70s. But I'm just going to dip the edges in like I did the ephemera and kind of seeing if I like that effect. This piece here, I did hand tear some of the edges. I thought it would be interesting to have little pieces of that hand tear show. I'm trying not to make it too uniform, but I think maybe I did in the end. But I'm just trying to skip along and just do little pieces here and there with it. I have the brush. I'm going to put splatters, and I might even paint a little bit on the bottom just to see what happens with that. This is a piece of packaging paper. It's already wrinkled when you get it, so I just embraced the wrinkles, and I'm just going to pat along randomly on the different areas. Just to see what effect. Of course, the wrapping paper is quite dark, so I'm not sure how well the ink is going to show up. And okay, it's time to see the results. The papers have pretty much dried. So this is the first one where we just put the splatters down, and this is the results of that. So it's rather light staining. Here is where we added the water. I did some brushing over on these corners, and we added water to, you can see the edges, the borders of a lot of these drops are frayed. A little bit of that soaking it in. And here the two colors came out pretty good, the vintage photo and the antique linen. So that was that one. This one here's, we dipped it in, and I dipped it in the same way that I dipped in, I did it the same way as I did this one, but we were getting down to the end of our the dye, and so it was a lot lighter. We need a lot more water, a lot less ink, let's put it that way. So that came out pretty neat too. You can see some water stains. Really like this effect. I think this is the one that I was probably going for. There's some more water staining all around there. So I liked that. That was good. I might have to repeat that one. Now the next three are the ones where I had the papers piled up on top of one another. So here's the one sheet. And this is what it is on both sides. So this is the one, the top and the bottom sheets are the ones that got the most direct dipping. The middle one got its print from the other two. So it is a lot less, but it's nice to have this kind of variety. And here is the bottom one. So yeah, so that was pretty interesting. I kind of like this idea because you didn't have to dip this paper. You can just take off from the other two papers that you were doing. And this was the random dipping. It wasn't the same as these here where I, dipped like I spread all the ink throughout all the pages. This one here, remember, it was just more or less dip, dip, dip in different little locations, and then put it immediately over the other paper so that it could soak it up. So that's how that one turned out. I'm happy with those papers. I think they were pretty much the level I was looking for. Now we'll go look at the tags, and so this is the first tag we did, and we just splattered it, and then we went through and we sprayed water over it. But that has a very interesting look, and I'm really pleased that the both inks are kind of coming through. If you can kind of see the antique linen here and there. So that was kind of a good thing. But here are the ones that I dipped, and really loving these. These are close to what I want. Now, once I decorate these, I'm going to go over the edge just like I did with that other piece of ephemera. I'm going to go into the ink like that and get them really dark on the edges. But I want to decorate them first before I do that, so that in case I got papers that are hanging over or whatever, they can be decorated too. And this was the last one. And this is when pretty much I was trying to soak up what was left. So it's very slight. And this is really, it's a lot of fun because you don't know what to expect. You really don't. And my two laces, you know, not that remarkable. They're okay. I think what I liked about this, as opposed to tea staining it, is that there's little pieces of white that are showing. And that, I kind of like that look. It kind of gives it a little bit more variety look to it. And here is the piece of ephemera that we just dipped in the edge. It does dry probably lighter, of course, than what it goes on, but I like that a lot. Really like that. And it splatters. I think I don't know if I splattered this on the camera, but I did go back and put splatters in. Now, my printer, the ink is not water. It's not. The ink is not permanent type of ink. It will blend, or it will. I'm looking for a word here, but it'll. You can see that it'll not be. It'll ruin the figure, the printing in there a little bit. Oh, I'm looking for a word, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So that I like that. If I'm doing this, it's not so great if you're going to tea stain the whole paper because it all runs and it looks really bad. But this is kind of fun for it to run in just little places like that, kind of like this look. Now these are pieces of paper glued onto cardstock, and so right here where the two pieces are glued together, there is some buckling. You kind of see a little buckling in there. I mean, I think this is fine with me because it looks even more distressed. But that's something to keep in mind when you're working with paper, is there's going to be some of that buckling on there. And here are the glassine bags, and they did not glue together in the middle, which was fantastic. I actually like this look more than I like it being totally tea stained. Yeah, I do like this molted modeling look on them. So that's how these turned out. I do like that. And then the pieces of, and then the muslin. So this was the first muslin. And the second muslin, you know, there are some variances in it. It's very hard to see because the ink was so light. You know, you can see it a little bit in real life. I don't know how much really shows in the camera. But this was the best, of course, because it had the darker inks left on it. And here are the pages. I like this. I like dipping the edges in. It makes this look so much older than what it is. I think the book was published in the late 50s. But I do like this. It's kind of random. It's not super even. I like that look. I like it even better than inking with a brush, or inking you know, this way with a pad. I like it better, to tell you the truth. And I did some splatters, but very few. And then here's the one where I sort of hand tore the edges a little bit. And I think every paper is going to probably absorb it differently than other ones. Now what I might do, I might go and purchase some walnut stain spray ink, because I think that would be even darker than the vintage photo. And so I might even end up taking this here and just lightly going over a few of these little edges here, so that, you know, creates a little bit more dimension on the sides there. Yeah, I kind of like that too. I don't want to overdo. I just love that spilling. And this is where I took the brush. I can really see taking the brush maybe and just sort of painting the edges in like that all the way around for another effect. So I am pleased with this. And as I suspected, because the ink was almost the same color as the wrapping, as this package paper, you can see it. You know, you can still see it some. Probably not as much, but you still can see it some. Anyway, so that's what that looks like. So that is my results. I just thought maybe I would share that little process with you and give you some ideas. You know, try this with oxide sprays, because I have a feeling that that all of this all these splatters, when you spray them with water, they'll really expand even more so than just the plain Distress ink. So anyhow, I hope this helps you get you inspired to go out there and experiment and play. And we will see you real soon as I move and do some more things. I have a few more ideas that I'm going to be putting into this journal, so I'll be sharing those real soon. Talk to you later. Bye.